Hey guys, Ben here. I'm usually behind the camera. On this week's episode of Communication Breakdown, we're going to be talking to the English prog rock band Curved Air. Founded in 1970, Curved Air rose to prominence as one of the few female-fronted prog rock bands. Drawing on folk and baroque influences, the band rose to fame with their hit song Backstreet Luv. Since then, their albums Aircut, Phantasmagoria and North Star have been highly regarded as pinnacles of English prog rock. Reece joined the band over Zoom to talk through 50 years of their career.
So Daryl Way and Francis Monkman started their band Sisyphus. How did you happen to join and then eventually form Curved Air?
Well, the link was Hair, because I was in the London original production of Hair, and that was written by Galt McDermott. And Daryl and Francis and Florian, the people in Sisyphus, which was basically Curved Air without, before I joined, just the same lineup, and they were working as a pit band for another musical that Galt had written. And I think Galt had seen me in Hair and said, why don't you ask Sonia if she's interested in joining. So that's sort of how it began.
Right.
So I went down and auditioned and took away a tape of their music, and I loved what they were doing, and they liked what I was doing, and it was just very easy and very natural, and I was really ready to leave the show because I've been in it for 2.5 years.
Right. So how does it compare, going from a sort of I guess Hair is quite a rocky musical, to then being in a prog rock band? How does that compare? Well,
I learned a lot being in Hair. I mean, I'd been at drama school and done movement classes and things there, but I've been a very static performer with a guitar and a microphone before that. But in Hair, we did a lot of dancing and a lot of being free and a lot of being expressive and high energy, and so that's what I was able to bring to the progressive rock band, and they were both rock and things like that. So I mean, I kind of had my moves sorted, or the beginnings of them, and my singing. I was used to singing strong. It was 8 shows a week, so right. So we went away to the countryside and rehearsed, and the songs were sounding great, and then we went out on the road and played lots and lots of little gigs and clubs, and travelled around in a coach and went round Holland and Germany, and then we had we got a record deal, and even before we'd been together a year, just really lucky series of events, and went into the studio, and it got into the top 10, and the audiences were really enthusiastic, and the press were enthusiastic, and everything. It couldn't have been better, really.
Right. So did you click with the guys as soon as you met them, and were you just sort of creatively able to make things as a group sort of thing? Yeah, we were. We got on really well. They were. We spent a lot of time together. We shared a flat most of the time, from very early on. So we were very comfortable with each other and knew each other really well. And it was pretty mellow in those days. Yeah. Right. And I've heard you say in interviews that Daryl is quite a sort of a specific sort of I don't know how to say this, sort of perfectionist when it comes to music. How did you sort of come up with the songs together? Was it Daryl would sort of come to you with an idea, or would you jam as a group, or?
No, when I joined, most of the songs had been written musically, instrumentally, and so my job was to finish off the songs where they just had 1 or 2 lines, which was indicated what it was about, and some where I could create everything myself. But I mean, they already had a set of good songs, and some we lost on during the first year, and Yeah, we got on really well. You know, they were like my brothers. You know, we used to mess around, and there was no barriers or shyness or anything like that.
So had you written songs before this?
Yeah, I wrote songs when I first started singing in public when I was 13, and gradually began to write songs sort of in the kind of sort of folky, somewhere between contemporary folk and incredible string bands sort of stuff, and so two of those songs made it onto the Curved Air catalogue. It was Melinda, more or less, on the third album, on Phantasmagoria, and then Elfin Boy was on Aircut, and those I'd both written both of those before I joined the band.
Right. So what is it like taking a song like Melinda, more or less, to Daryl and Francis, and getting them to sort of put their own spin on it, sort of instrumentally? What is that process like?
Well, they weren't too keen to do to introduce my stuff into the set originally, because they didn't want to be thought of as a folk band, and but when they did we did decide to record Melinda, which was really the first one. No, they just Francis and created a lovely harpsichord parts and they just played beautifully on it, and they did their own thing on it, and which was really gorgeous. So I mean, I was just very, very happy to get one of my songs on a Curved Air album. Right.
So just on that, like, that song is quite, I want to say, sort of baroque sounding, and there's quite a few songs from especially early Curved Air where it sounds quite classical, especially songs like Vivaldi and even Metamorphosis on Aircut. Did this sort of where did this sort of classical influence come from?
Well, both Darren and Francis were music college graduates, and they just finished their music degrees, and Darryl went to the Royal College of Music and Francis to the Royal Academy of Music. I think it was that way around. So, but they were very much influenced by sort of West Coast rock music, sort of Spirit and people like that, and Francis loved Hendrix, who sort of influenced his kind of flamboyant guitar stuff, and contemporary classical stuff was pretty weird at that time too, so that was kind of, those sort of things was kind of influenced their take on things. And so just the whole thing was really where they were coming from, and Francis was very into modulating sounds and playing with the VCS3 and just creating unheard sounds that had never been heard before, which was that was the time when all that was evolving. So they were. And Daryl too, he was a showman. Everybody was really good on stage, but Daryl too was pretty boring. He'd be really flamboyant and with his scarf on the end of his violin and explosions going off in Vivaldi and making weird, strange noises himself. So, I mean, deliberately strange noises.
So, what were you listening to around that time? Were you sort of listening to the same sort of thing?
No. I liked Tim Buckley and Traffic and the Rolling Stones and because there was a little record shop near me on the way to college, and I used to pop in there, and he used to say, "Oh, this has just come in from America," and you know, and I used to listen to that stuff, and so that, you know, that was the kind of thing. I mean, when I was growing up, I really liked the Incredible String Band and Buffy Sainte-Marie, and but I think I'd stopped really listening to singer-songwritery stuff by the time I joined Curved Air. I was really into rock stuff. I'd been listening to R&B and Howlin' Wolf and all that kind of thing down at the Marquee. All different kinds of rock I like.
Right. So I've heard that early on you guys toured with Black Sabbath.
Yeah.
And I was speaking to Derek Shulman of Gentle Giant, and he and Gentle Giant also toured with Black Sabbath. And when they went on tour, there was sort of this almost confrontational side of the audience towards prog in general. I wondered if you guys had a similar sort of experience, or were they a lot more receptive to it?
Oh yeah, because we'd already done our many circuits in smaller venues in England, and we'd built up quite a good following. So our set was really, really well received, which surprised us, you know. So it was we were a strong support for Black Sabbath, you know, and we used to have fun with them on the road too.
Right. What was that like?
What, being with Sabbath? Oh, they were naughty boys. They do things that I couldn't even mention on here.
So for me personally, my favourite of your albums is definitely Aircut by a mile. I was just listening to the remaster a few days ago, and it really is great. So there's a lot of experimentation, and it really does feel like sort of this is your sort of most progressive album, I guess you could say. You have songs like Metamorphosis that have that incredible intro with the piano and the UHF. Where does the idea behind an album like Aircut come from?
It came from us learning to play together as a band. I mean, it was a new band. Mike Wedgwood and Sonia, you know, were the core. And I mean, Eddie and I were quite young. I mean, Eddie was very young. I was 19. And we were very excited, you know. I was over the moon to be in Curved Air. It was, you know, I was on cloud nine. And we did a lot. My memory, I mean, Sonia can correct me if I'm wrong, but we did a lot of rehearsing down at Studio 51, which was a fantastic little club in the West End, where the Stones used to play, and they had all these photographs on the wall of
and two old ladies who made cups of tea.
Yeah, two old ladies with three eyes between them. And we did a lot. Does that resonate with you, Sonia? That we did a lot of kind of playing together to find out how things were going to sound.
Yeah, but we did, but we sort of deliberately created. You know, we had the kind of Curved Air instrumental. We created that, and we did the Curved Air magnum opus, which was Eddie's Metamorphosis. You know, and then I'd wanted it to get things to get more rocky and away from the sort of the very classical things, and so, you know, you brought in the really rocky songs. You know, so
I think also what we were doing, it had a lot more emotion in it, I think.
Yeah.
You know, some of the emotional content of those songs, I think Easy was, you know, very powerful.
Yeah, that was my song as well, from kind of developed from before. But, you know, that too, I mean, that was just a song, but we developed it so that it had interesting sections and things, sort of a la prog, you know.
Well, we were dynamite live because, I mean, I heard last year I heard that recording of us playing in Dublin, and I was just amazed at the power of it. I think that all that, youthful exuberance came out. It was good.
On Phantasmagoria, there's sort of it again feels like a different sound to what we've heard, with Aircut. On Marie Antoinette, I had a look at the credits for who's playing what, and it says that Daryl is credited in playing a melon. I wondered if you could help me out with that. I don't know where that is.
That was the sound of the guillotine. That was
right. I see. I was just wondering. I was like, "Where's this melon that I'm missing in the?" Just this idea of Daryl hitting a melon in the middle of a studio or something that makes sense with the guillotine. Yeah. So I also just wanted to touch on this, Sonia, because I think within prog it is quite a male-heavy genre of music. And I think Curved Air are one of the few sort of female-fronted prog rock bands. How does it feel being, sort of a pioneer of feminism within prog rock?
A lot of people say, wasn't there a lot of misogyny and things like that? But I never ever experienced that, because I think I was such a hippie, and I was so kind of free love and love-ins and sit-ins and squat parties and things like that. That there wasn't really a real male-female divide. People would get together as mates. And that's how it was with the band too. They didn't treat me like a sort of a girly girl. And in fact, I know I'm not a girly girl, because when I am with people who are like that, they're not sort of usually into the sort of things that I'm into. They go out with the girls and stuff, which I never ever do.
Do you think that you had more female fans than the average rock band?
No, not at all. They were all boys, all that we could see.
Right.
All boys screaming when we came on playing Backstreet Luv.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that as well. So Backstreet Luv was sort of I don't know if this is the right term, but sort of a surprise hit for you guys. You'd never really put out many singles before that. What was the idea behind putting this out as a single?
Because it was a good song. It came together. It was a riff of Daryl's, and I wrote the lyrics and they were sort of about my kind of teenage years. It sounded good on the radio. When we heard it on the radio, I just knew it was going to be good. It was going to go well. It's another one of those kind of, magic strokes of good fortune. The right song at the right time.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about Airborne. In sort of within the Curved Air sort of catalogue, it definitely feels like the most sort of marketable Curved Air album. It sort of moves sort of away from prog into a sort of classic rock feel. Do you think you guys did this intentionally, or did it just sort of, was that how the band sort of evolved to make music?
No, it was very, very much everybody writing their own songs and producing their own songs and things. But Daryl had the long sort of opus piece he wrote. Was it what was it called? The floating in space, and the something, it was called something to do with outer space and stuff. And he did another one called Juno, which was very, very Curved Airish. So he put the Curved Air stamp on stuff. But otherwise, Daryl was also into a kind of bluesy, jazzy exploratory period, and Mick Jakes being a wonderful blues guitarist, and Tony Reeves, he was kind of come from a sort of jazz prog background. you know, that they were kind of exploring those sort of things, and the songs that Daryl was doing and the arrangements were, they sort of went towards the sort of pop jazz bluesy feel.
Right. So then, if we sort of move along a little to 1976, that's when Curved Air sort of broke for the first time. What was the cause of this?
Well, I mean, I was really, I really wanted to do something else. You know, I was, the band to me didn't seem to be going anywhere because everybody was writing in different styles, and Daryl was wanting to go off and do his own thing, and our manager Miles Copeland, you know, he was beginning to look after punk bands, and you know, all that punk stuff was happening, and that was really exciting. You know, I really loved that. And Stuart Copeland, who was my lover at the time, and you know, became my sort of long-term partner, we used to go out and watch the punk bands and make friends with them, and you know, so because we weren't on the road and having to sort of keep going in the Curved Air vein, it left us both a lot more free, you know. And I started he started the Police, and I was going to work with Roy Thomas Baker, who produced Queen, but then he got sidetracked, and so I got together a band called Sonia Christina's Escape, and that was pretty well received, but it took a while before Escape recorded an album, and by that time it wasn't exactly the same people, so it didn't have quite the same fire and stuff, but you know, it's still a record of the times. So yeah, it was good to have some time. I think I even did some plays and musicals and things in that time as well. You know, it was a release. Right.
I guess that kind of gives, you know, light to why you probably called it Escape, right?
Yeah, because it was free to get to do the other things I like doing.
Yeah. So then there were a few sort of little reunions over the years, but then the big one, which sort of formed Curved Air as it is now, was in 2008. How did that come about?
Well, Daryl had been badgering me for a while to get together and give Curved Air a go again, and I'd been working on another project, and it wasn't until I'd actually sort of finished the album that I was working on that I felt that I had the time to devote to going back to Curved Air. So, you know, and then it was a very sort of rocky, kind of turbulent beginning, because Francis and Daryl were so, you know, Daryl had his way of writing, and Francis wanted to kind of get together in the studio and create everything afresh, like a brand new band, whereas Daryl wanted to write basically sort of pop songs, really, with a couple of fiery instrumentals and stuff, and Daryl was going in a weird direction. You know, he was doing he did a kind of what he thought was a dance version of Backstreet Luv, but you know, which was okay. I mean, but we at least Francis dropped out because he didn't want to be in a sort of a song playing all the old stuff and things. Whereas, you know, I think there's nothing wrong in playing the old stuff, because that's what people want to hear, as long as the band, you know, are breathing life into it, you know, which is what we were, you know, what we enjoyed doing.
Nice. So, do you and Daryl still keep in touch now, or?
Not really. I mean, it was perfectly friendly between us, but you know, he lives down in the West Country, and yeah, I mean, there's only business stuff to keep in touch over, and everything. It's all very very friendly, and with Francis too. He kind of went off and did his own thing for a while, but he's in touch and has been working on some of the mixing and things like that.
Did you all sort of grow up listening to Curved Air? Were you around at the time?
I haven't grown up yet.
No, I'm not going to grow up. It's not a plan. Well, I actually played with Sonia when I was about 21 in a band called Cloud 10 for a couple of years when I was in London. I'd just been in London for a while. And I played in a band, a kind of country band actually, with Paul Sachs. We used to play in this club. And it was through Paul that I got in touch with Sonia, and then I started playing with Cloud 10, And then I kind of went off doing other musical things. And then basically a few years ago, perhaps 3 years ago, you were looking for a new drummer, basically, for kind of various reasons. Because Florian because he'd been, he just wanted to retire, didn't he, basically?
Yeah,
that was the idea.
So that's the thing.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do. And because we had this history, I was in the back of your mind, and I've been doing all different bands and sort of a lot of different musical projects, working abroad and touring. But it was nice. It was a nice conversation. It was an old blast from the past, and I had good memories. So it's great. I've really enjoyed seeing Sonia again, and actually Robert was in that band as well. I'm pointing to Robert over there.
Yeah.
But and so we got a history. But Cloud 10, we were all. It was just a great time then, and it's nice to be involved with these great musicians again. Actually, it's really great.
But I had a brother 4 years older than me, and so in 1972, I recorded on a Curry's C90 cassette the second Curved Air album, which I still have in my collection. So apparently my older brother, who was more into kind of Jimi Hendrix and the String Machine and other stuff, whereas my other brother was into kind of Genesis and Stevie Wonder and Crusaders and that kind of stuff. He had the first album, and he considered that to be the great album. And the second album my other brother had. So, and they were kind of at war with each other, these two brothers. So I had these both these influences. But the second album was the one I used to listen to.
So you guys are celebrating 50 years of Curved Air this year. How do you think that the sound of Curved Air has sort of evolved from 1970?
Well, we've got to interpret it, haven't we? You listen to the original versions, you learn it, but then you've got to put your own spin on it. Otherwise, you would just be copying everything note for note. So as Robert was saying about Andy, he's listened to the tracks, but he's putting his own drumming to the tracks, which puts them in a different direction to what they were doing originally, but it's sort of different, and it's sort of like dynamic and exciting. So when you listen to a recording, it's one version of the song that you get for your your CD or your record. But when we play it live, it's always slightly different. There's always different things going on. So you've got to be aware that the version of something you've recorded or you've learned is just one version. So I think it's more dynamic now, and there's a lot more influences because there's been a lot of music between the early 70s and now that's appeared and sort of helped influence what we do.
I do think it's nice that we seem to be playing very much as a band in the kind of way that bands back then did, to some extent. So I think there is, in that sense, it's almost feels like it's come full circle, even though I wasn't there obviously at the time. But it is a real band, and we do really play together. And I think so. I think we're honouring the spirit of the progressive rock. And
because whatever we record, we're able to play as well.
Yeah, but there's a lot of kind of listening and interacting and kind of a lot of swing. There's a lot of feel in the music, which I think is what it's all about, really.
I think it's interesting that when we played in Japan earlier in the year, and we played some of those songs from Aircut, the first time we'd ever played them, because even at the time we didn't play all of the material from Aircut, and it was a sort of powerful mixture of it being kind of authentic to what the records were, and yet it felt very modern. I think there's I think the band has matured in a good way.
Yeah, and we've recorded one new album that was created by the band. Then it was Chris and Robert. It was just that the different violin player and different drummer, and that material has gone down so well with the audiences. You know, they really love that album, and it's got good, great reviews on Amazon, and we've also recorded and released a couple of live albums, the 45th anniversary, and then there was one in the middle with Kit's lovely playing on, and the band as it was then. So listening to the band live, it's it varies according to the musicians who are interpreting the music, and there are different songs, and it's great. It never, as Robert says, it never gets boring for us or the audiences, because it's alive, and that's what musicians like these can do. Is they can breathe life into a piece of music. No matter how long it's been around, it sounds like it's just been born.
And the making of North Star was like a baptism of fire. I mean, it was such a kind of multi-layered process of everything that it nearly didn't happen, but the fact that it did happen through all that pain, was just so powerful. And so we really lived the making of that album in the deepest possible way. And I think that's got something to do with why it does work. Those tracks really, we really sweated blood and tears for those tracks.
So how does something like North Star come about? Did you all come together and say, let's make something, or did you all sort of have ideas that came from different places, or
both, really, didn't we?
Yeah, but there were I was.
We all came up with ideas, didn't we?
Yeah, and I kind of worked as I listened to people's ideas, and the ones that I thought would make good live, the ones that I could hear played up on a big stage at a big festival, that I felt were really, really powerful. I thought, said, let's start working on those, and then I kind of, with everybody else, I helped shape them into what to me Curved Air is, so that it didn't get locked into lots of songs of different styles, even though the person who brought this song in, brought it in with their elements and their interests and stylings. But I think so. And then I wrote lyrics and created some of the melodies from parts that I'd heard in the music that they had started off with. So it was all very organic. It is important for this band to create something that is played where the parts are created by everybody by playing together.
There's a lot of really strong material on that album, so I was really inspired. It was great because I hadn't actually been involved in writing any of the songs. I just came in and I just heard these songs and I got very excited about it and was able to play guitar on it. And it sounded to me like a band that was going somewhere, rather than a sort of tribute band.
Yeah, and it's amazing though that despite the fact of you moulding all the different songs, Sonia, the songs are still very, very different stylistically to each other.
Yeah.
And yet they all sound like they're part of the same band.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting.
So you guys were in the middle of a tour, if I'm not incorrect. But this sort of pandemic sort of pushed everything back to next year, I think, for you. Do you think when you go on tour, there's sort of different countries, different groups sort of interpret prog differently, or is there sort of areas where you sort of have more devoted fans, let's say?
Well, Brazil seemed to be very, very. I was getting lots of messages from excited fans in Brazil. That we were going to come there and play. In South America, definitely seemed to be keen on the band, and Japan too. They love Curved Air, and particularly the Aircut album. And
their depth of knowledge about the album was really incredible. I mean, they knew more about it than I did.
Italy, we've toured Italy several times, and I remember playing there with the Aircut band, and they were kind of queuing up. They were sort of shouting outside. They followed us back to the hotel, and they were shouting outside the hotel. They wanted autographs and stuff.
I remember on that tour we were doing 2 shows a day. We did a sort of 4 o'clock show where there was sort of mixed audience, and then we did a 8 o'clock show, and it was just all men.
What is everyone's favourite little piece of Curved Air?
Oh, I think in a way Screw. Yeah, I love that piece. It's just, I kind of go on a very deep journey with that, especially when it kind of gets into the climactic sections. It just takes me somewhere special.
Well, I wish you'd asked me first, because I feel a bit foolish now saying my favourite track is Screw. But no, I think the thing that I like about Curved Air is that it's a sort of a very unlikely mix of ingredients that easily could have turned out to be a really unpalatable meal, but it's actually delicious.
Andy?
Well, Screw is so powerful. It's kind of brooding and then kind of explodes, but I enjoy playing the Aircut stuff in Japan, sort of rekindling that music. That was great, UHF and all those ones with Mike.
Stretch. I think Stretch. Yeah. It's just fun. It's a bouncy sort of pop rock song with a bizarre middle bit that gets more bizarre as it goes. But it's just a nice, catchy song, and also it's a great encore as well, isn't it?
Yeah, Greg.
I would say Screw, but Robert picked that one, and I would also say Metamorphosis, but Andy mentioned that. So yeah, the third for me will be Propositions, because of this harsh style, and because we've got a lot of space to do some improvisations all together, and it's a lot of fun to play that, and yeah, Propositions is also my favorite.
Nice. Sonia?
Marie Antoinette I really enjoy performing, because it always seems really contemporary, because we live in the sort of time of revolutions, and so I can really breathe fire into that. And Melinda, I always loved doing Melinda, and we seem to do that every single show, and that's a sort of a really quiet moment in the middle of all the other drama and emotion.
Okay. And yeah, so my last question is kind of just, again, open to everyone, really. What's next for Curved Air?
We need to get this album together.
Yeah, we need to have new product. I mean, we will have there will be a release. Robert's working on the Japan show, so that will be a live release.
How's that going, Robert?
Oh, it's going splendidly. No, I'm working on the jam session now. That's getting me back in the mood. I've taken a month off from doing 120 hours just sorting out glitches and getting it to the point where I can even begin working on it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And we want to just, want to try working together virtually and just wait for the concert halls to open again. And you know, when next year comes, which will be before too long, I guess it'll whiz by. Particularly if we're working on the album. I mean, that will take a while, and it's nice to have a stretch of time to do that. Yeah, I think, you know, it's going to next year. We're doing Brazil and festivals, or probably the prog, whatever, Cruise to the Edge. We do that again if they ever allow cruise ships to float on the water anymore. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stuff to look forward to, and also to kind of to bring to play newly created material
in front of people. I really miss playing live, and I think that's it's a real strength of this band. As Beric said, you know, we've got a powerful collection of people here, and when we get in front of an audience, that's when we shine. Yeah,
indeed. You know, you can't beat. I mean, I sometimes feel, you know, when I've not been on the road for a while, you know, I sometimes think, you know, it feels like, you know, you're just going from your kitchen, suddenly you're meant to be this thing on stage, you know. But it's amazing, you know, you're standing there, and because we usually start with an instrumental, I like that, and you know, so I'm there rocking away in the back, backstage, and I'm thinking, oh God, I'm lucky to be with these people, you know, that what a great sound, you know, and then there's the roar of the crowd, and then I come on, and it just all takes care of itself, you know, and I'm not, but it's hard to envisage doing it when I'm sitting at home.
Right, well, thank you all so much for taking the time to give me this interview. Hopefully I'll get to see you guys next year when you come on tour. Until then, I look forward to it, but thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank
you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Communication Breakdown. I want to say a special thank you to my camera operator, Ben, especially for his intro at the beginning. And to our special guest this week, Curved Air. Make sure you give us a like on Facebook and Instagram, and we will see you next week. Bye.